Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm here again with Fiona McGlynn, currently a year 3 astrological apprentice at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com in the 4-year apprenticeship program. And we're continuing with the planets for each ascendant. We've reviewed Libra with Fiona up through Venus or Mercury, and now we're getting ready to take some time to consider how the moon functions, what the moon means for a Libra ascendant, if it's functioning its highest capacity. Mm-hmm. And as you can tell, I'm projecting myself astrally. I'm hovering around the planet Jupiter at the moment to make sure that the knowledge imparted is correct and accurate. So anyway, it should come through clearly, even though I'm so far away. So thank you again for being here with me, Fiona.
You're welcome, Ryan. Thank you for having me say hello to everyone. And I'm projecting myself from, humble little Portugal here. So,
yes.
Bem-vindo, todos os portugueses who are watching.
So if you need some astrology, astrological work in Portugal or somewhere near the area next year, and that will be around 2020 as of this recording, Fiona will need some donation-based clients to work with and to help her get through the 4th year of the astrological apprenticeship program. So anyway.
Exactly.
Yes. What language were you speaking there for a moment? Was that Spanish?
Portuguese.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also something that Brazilians speak, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's a very well-spoken language across the world.
Really?
Yeah. You don't realize that as an English speaker, but yeah. Anyway.
I don't realize a lot of things as an English speaker. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to the moon. So for a Libra ascendant, we have the moon ruling the 10th house, so it rules an angle. And first of all, that tells us something about how the moon functions for a Libra ascendant. We'll also go into considering the idea that the moon is debilitated in the first 3 degrees of the 2nd house for a Libra ascendant, and the moon is exalted in the moon is exalted in Taurus for a Libra ascendant. That's so Fiona, right. Let's start with this idea of the moon ruling the 10th house for a Libra ascendant. What does that tell us about how the lunar qualities, if they could come through a Libra ascendant in its highest, clearest fashion, how would that be?
Yes. Well, I think one thing to point out, of course, is that when it's in the 10th house, anything in the 10th house is going to be visible to people. It's that house that's most likely to be activated, to be in action, to be visible out there in the real world. So we're going to notice lunar qualities probably about Libra ascendants. And some of those lunar qualities are going to be around there's going to be something about emotions and being connected to their emotional self. And that obviously has flavors from the other planets that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. But it's also going to be around popularity and being seen and receiving the light, like from the sun, but receiving the light from the population and reflecting that back. So there's a real invitation in the Libra blueprint for this role of being receptive to the public or being known to the public and reflecting that back, and in an emotionally true way.
Right. And particularly around their activity in the world and their career in the world, since we have the moon ruling over the 10th house for them. So when we think about Libra ascendant, and when I think about Libra ascendant, there is always this focus, this emphasis towards relating to others, understanding others, being able to connect well to others. And you mentioned that in regards to the idea of popularity, because when the moon has to do with the 10th house, or is a full moon, or is prominent in a person's chart, they tend to be well recognized by others. Even if people don't know who they are, they just seem like someone that they're comfortable with. So when you think about Libra and their career, how does that lunar quality come out in their potential for career, since it rules the 10th house?
I think it can come out, because there's, trying to keep these things to only one planet is interesting, but it's hard to resist here bringing in the Venus diplomacy that naturally this is a Venus ascendant, and here we are with this ability to connect with people using diplomacy. So possibly something around politics, around what do you call those people who work in embassies? Who are connecting
Diplomats.
diplomats.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And definitely something connecting to the public. So.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I've noticed often with Venus ruled ascendants, but particularly Libra, is that they do have a tendency to be drawn towards professions where, like for example, nursing, or
Yes,
caring for others, or
definitely.
counseling others. And that ties us back to that idea that when we were looking at Jupiter for a Libra ascendant, because Jupiter rules the sixth house, and Jupiter is a planet of counseling, giving wisdom. So oftentimes Libra ascendants have this capacity to share wisdom or to share counsel as a means of their work and their service to the world. So, when we think about these things, the moon helps us understand, in a sense, what the mission objective of a Libra ascendant is, since it does rule the 10th house. Now, when we consider the exaltation, debilitation positions, let's think about this one's sort of the most fascinating part of the moon for me. When we think about the fact that the moon rules the 10th house,
yes,
but it's debilitated in the second house. How does that come across for you? How do you understand that, Fiona?
Well, I think the moon here, one of the themes we haven't explicitly mentioned is that the moon is the fastest moving planetary object that we're talking about here. So it picks up on this theme of change, that the moon is moving quickly. Mm-hmm. And in the previous videos, we talked also about Libra having some comfortableness with change, or just having change in their life because of the 1-8 Venus
right.
already. So that the moon has this natural ability of change. We associate it with change. And here we see that it's going to be exalted in the 8th house that we think of as transformation and change. Mm-hmm. It kind of tells us that this debilitation in the 2nd house is partly something possibly around the Scorpio, and the fixed water nature of Scorpio is partly what's debilitating for the moon there.
Right.
And that perhaps that getting too emotional, getting too dragged into the emotional, the wetness and the depths of Scorpio is not going to show the moon at its best, because also not a lot of light is getting into the cracks and crevices of the Scorpio, right? It's got this deep, dark depth, richness to it, whereas the moon is wanting that light to reflect back, that popularity we were talking about with the 10th house. So but then it also makes me think that, because the question you actually asked me was, what is it about the 2nd house that is not working so well for the moon?
Right.
Is that maybe in the Libra blueprint, perhaps the activity that you're known for shouldn't be driven by meeting your financial needs or your need to meet financial responsibilities. That's not going to be, it's going to be a draining combination for a Libra blueprint.
Right. Yeah, that makes good sense. And also on top of that, when we think about the 2nd house being a house of speech, one of the things that Libra is often known for is its diplomacy. However, what can go wrong there in diplomacy is when diplomacy turns into flattery, in the sense of trying to say things to people such that you get what you want, or to be seen as better in another person's eyes. So, when we have this 10th lord debilitated in the 2nd house, oftentimes it can show a difficulty with Libra ascendant doing things, either using words of flattery to kind of try to get what they want, to be manipulative, or this idea of trying to look better in other people's eyes rather than doing the hard work that needs to be done. And when we have the moon exalted in the 8th house in the sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign, Taurus being an earth sign, it gives the idea of bearing burdens. The representation is that of a 4-legged animal that can bear burdens. And what is it bearing the burdens of? It's bearing the burdens of psychological change in general, but also it's bearing the burdens of, in a sense, standing up for one's inner truth, that eighth house of the deeper psychological truth that we have, rather than what we see with a debilitation in the second house is trying to get around that by either pleasing other people or trying to get other people to think that the one is better than one actually is. So it's like taking those risks and bearing the burden of those risks rather than trying to skirt around it with flowery words, which the Libra ascendant can be prone to do.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And, the other thing about the second house with the moon is that the second house deals with early childhood, immediate family, things of this nature. And oftentimes with a Libra ascendant, there can be an over-attachment, an over-emotional attachment to thinking that one cannot fulfill one's duty or dharma because one has to stay attached to one's family, one's land of birth, one's origins. So oftentimes with Libra ascendant, there will be a need to break away from sort of how they were raised to kind of change and transform and to grow into their own best psychological self, really. And that reflects the exalted moon in the eighth house there. So,
so that becomes a very interesting part of the blueprint, that it's a little bit set to encourage that. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the moon's a pretty neat planet for a Libra ascendant. It's very important to learn to work with the moon well, primarily because the moon rules the 10th house. And the 10th house is that house which people are usually most known for, or the karma or the activity they get involved in the world. So attending to the 10th house Lord, trying to live in harmony with the highest representation of that 10th house Lord, that can smooth the ride a bit for any ascendant. So before we finish up with the moon and Libra, do you have any other thoughts you might have had in your notes or on your mind?
A little thought there around that falls of status, or that problems with the 10th house are going to hurt emotionally, or that there's a sensitivity there.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a very important point to bring up, is that Libra ascendants can tend to get, and the rationale behind this is, again, thinking about the 10th Lord debilitated in the second, and the 10th and the second houses are very important houses because they have tying together the sense of vocation and work. 2, 6, and 10, these are all important houses for the idea of our work in the world. And so since the moon is debilitated in the second, it's going to show exactly what you said, that a Libra ascendant will tend to get too caught up emotionally in their work, rather than, again, doing the hard work they need to do, tapping into that Saturn. They can be pulled around by their emotions and therefore be pulled off track of what they're actually supposed to be doing. So, the Libra needs to be in tune with their emotions, but they also need to develop a healthy sense of detachment so that they can get whatever work done they need to get done in this world. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating mix, because I think I feel that the moon here is quite, I'm leaning towards it. It's a bit unstable, and this is the thing with the sun and the moon, they only rule one house. So it's like, yippee, it's ruling the 10th house. That's a great thing, because it's it's an angle, but it's got no support from another house to make that stronger or more stable. So I'm perceiving some of these issues with the moon, but we have to return to the quote from Brihat Horapashas. He says, that it makes a Raja Yoga, right? That's a really well regarded for the Libra ascendant. So although I'm perceiving those potential instabilities there, actually it's very capable of working well in the Libra chart.
Yeah. But you don't want to overlook exactly what you're saying, is that there is, the moon is very sensitive for Libra ascendant. But it's for any ascendant, really, because it does, like you said, rule only one house. But for a Libra ascendant, it does have the capacity to give Raj Yoga. But as with all things, we really need to kind of tie it into what house is it in, what is it up to, what is it doing, and who is it with to support it. So we, as you learned in that class, we look at that as a possibility, but we have to qualify it by reading the rest of the chart. So hopefully everyone out there listening will remember that. to not just jump on that one line. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, great.
Okay, good. Well, we'll go ahead and conclude here with this generalization of the moon for Libra Ascendant and how to work with it. And next up, we'll be looking at the sun for Libra Ascendant. Okay, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Okay.